Afternoon, I am Mr. Bailey, and today we will be covering the executive branch, the powers and responsibility that come with being our chief executive. Our learning objectives: by the end of this lesson, you will be able to explain the structure and key powers of the executive branch and analyze how the president's role has evolved over time. To kick things off, what does it mean to be the president of the United States? Generally, we think of a leader who gives speeches, signs laws into being, and flies around on Air Force One. But what does the Constitution actually say about the role of the executive? And how have different presidents changed the role of the executive over time? In this lesson, we'll break it down in the following: how is the presidency structured? What powers does the president hold? And how have different presidents shaped the role of the executive? Going to the basic levels of the executive branch. This is defined in Article 2 of the US Constitution. The main job of the president: enforce and carry out our laws. Some key roles that come with that: they are the head of state, they are the symbolic leader of our country. They're also the chief executive, responsible for executing our laws and running the federal government. A great example of seeing that happening is watching the State of the Union address that the president gives to a joint session of Congress. During that State of the Union, the president lays out their agenda, saying, "Hey, this is what I would like to get accomplished over the next 4 years. Congress, go make it happen." The president is also the commander in chief of our armed forces, so they run the military. They are also our chief diplomat, so they deal with our foreign affairs, to include negotiating treaties. So while they do have the power to negotiate the treaty, our founding fathers did create this concept called checks and balances within our Constitution. So they can create the treaty and negotiate it. However, Senate needs to ratify that treaty. So until that treaty is ratified, it has no actual power. And lastly, they are our chief legislator. They influence the law by either signing laws into effect or vetoing them. So if the president agrees with a bill that Congress passes, they will sign that law into effect. If they disagree, they have the power of the veto. However, that law will then go back to Congress or the legislative branch, and each house can override that veto with a two-thirds majority. Now that we have the basics of the executive branch, we'll move on to how that presidential power has changed over time. So, the Constitution, per Article 2, gives the president those specific powers that we just talked about. But over time, different leaders have expanded or limited what that role can do based off of their interpretation. George Washington, our first president, had no one before him to know what a president was. This was a brand new concept. So he set the precedent of what it meant to be the president of the United States. One main thing that we remember about George Washington is that two-term limit. After his second term in office, he stepped down and let another president take over. Now, this precedent was followed until the 1930s, when FDR was elected to 4 consecutive terms. That ended with the ratification of the 22nd Amendment in 1951, where Congress put in writing that 2 terms is the max that a president can serve. Abraham Lincoln expanded the executive even further during the Civil War by suspending habeas corpus. He did that knowing that it was within his power to do so, so that he could restore peace and order to the North during the Civil War while they were defending off a rebellious South, so that they can reunify the nation. And lastly, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, the New Deal. He set up many different new agencies and departments through executive orders to establish programs such as Social Security that we see today. With executive orders, the modern president has started to use those as a way to bypass Congress, showing how that presidential power can expand. So, why does this matter today? Presidents make decisions that affect each and every one of us. Understanding how the executive works helps us be more informed citizens. So, ask yourself, is this what the founders imagined, or has that role changed too much? In conclusion, we've explained the structure and key powers of the executive branch. We've analyzed how the president's role has evolved over time. So here's a question to think about and your assignment. Which presidential role do you think is most important today, and why? I look forward to reading your responses. Have a great day.